interested in what I'm saying. But what I want to talk to y'all about today, or what I want to share with y'all, is about the mind and the power of the mind. It is said by psychologists, scientists, physicists, about the mind is so powerful, right? That it can create its own scenario. And that's what they get AI from, right? It's like from the way the mind works, right? But at the same time, what they're saying is the mind can only create or recreate what's already exists, what it had experienced, right? Or what it feels, right? Which is pretty deep. But at the same time, if you think about it, that's exactly how AI works. Because everything has been deprogrammed, right? Into a chip, right? Into a computer, right? By man's and their thoughts and their experience with life in the universe, right? From its mental and physical aspect and emotional aspect, right? So what that computer does, right? It allowed the machine to act as though, off a sensor to feed back from whatever that been downloaded in there. So from whatever questions you ask, it can easily, answer this question from what was already programmed up in there to be able to answer these questions, plus add to the questions, right? Or the answers from your aspects of what you asking it, right? But at the same time, it's still deprogrammed, right? It's only as smart as the person that's created or what was downloaded into it. You get what I mean? So it's not intelligent. It make you think it's intelligent and it's outsmarts you, but it doesn't. Because everything that it speak about, every information it give you still come from man. And it was programmed by man, right? So this new computer never gonna be smarter than man, to be honest with you. But it makes you think that by deprogramming yourself, right? And by looking down on yourself, right? And not realizing how intelligent you is, right? So, what other words, regardless of what the computer says, right? Or what you ask it, right? It's still best that you know what you know from your own experience, right? And from your own researches, right? Because that computer still will give you misled information, false information, because all the information that it gives you is still programmed by man's. You understand what I'm saying? Because I play with it all the time because, I'm one of them like nerdy guys that's be want to know, all types of questions and things. So it's certain questions that I ask AI and to this day where they tell me where I'm not incapable to answer that. I don't know how to answer that. So that's already let me know that it can only answer or respond to what it was already programmed to do, right? But what it does to for the thing that it wasn't programmed, right, to respond to, because it's only a computer, it's only a machine, so it has no emotion, it has no conscience, right? It only has a sensor to respond from an emotion, right, from a sensors, right? That make it feel though if it has a emotion or it has a mind, which it doesn't, right? So that's why it's there's certain questions I can ask it where it can't respond and can't answer to, right? Because it's beyond its authority because it's a machine, right? But anyway, I don't want to get too far off the subject. What I really wanted to share with y'all was how powerful the mind is. And like I said, according to psychologists, scientists, and certain physics, right? It say the mind can only create or recreate what's already exists. and what is experienced and what is feel. So at the same time, it says, but whatever it creates or recreates or feel is still not real because it's the mind. So therefore it's making an illusion. And then it's turned around and say in another aspect, though what is create and recreate and feel is real in another aspect. So to most people, that's confusing, right? And you'll be like, well, they double talking. One minute you're saying this and next minute you're saying that. And at the same time, you can't have it both ways. Well, actually you could. So what I take it from what they're saying, from the human aspect, from the physical aspect, right? From the flesh, right? You can feel it. So you can touch it. So that make it real, right? And then from a mental aspect and from a psychological aspect, right? And from an emotion aspect, you can't graph it. You can't feel it. So that make it illusion, right? So it's like, it's two worlds and two dimensions, right? It's like the spirit and the flesh, right? To a certain extent. So it's kind of like saying we living in two different lives, right? And we sharing two different dimensions, right? But both of them dimensions in these lives, they intertwine with one another, right? So it comes to points and times where they in conflicts, you know, because they both have to share the same space. So therefore the same word. So with that said, let me kind of like trying to give you an example what's going on in my mind, you know, just from, you know, doing the research, you know, and for being able to share what I'm sharing with you when it comes down to the mind. So it's like saying to me, right, when we dreams, right, you know, when it comes to the body, when you dream, it's like saying the body in a physical aspect, right, it's only can do so much, right? But whatever it can do, it only can do what it's designed to do, right? Like the heart will pump blood, the liver this, you know, because that's what it's designed to do. But it comes to the aspect, after working so hard, right, it wears and tears to the point where it will shut itself down and it has to rest, right? But during the time when it's resting, right, because the mind, right, and this self-consciousness is ongoing, right, and it never rests, right? So it creates its own scenarios, like during the time, like when you're dreaming, it's like it's traveled back to different dimensions from which it came, right? Or which it's been, or which it already exists, right? It's like saying you exist in different dimensions, right? And you always have to one aspect, even though you probably don't believe it, you know, but what the mind does is unset codes, and it's traveled to these places that it already exists, that has already been, that has already experienced, right? So that kind of would explain to me, in a certain way, right? That's how come, like when you dreaming, you in places that you never been before, right? You never seen, and you see people that you never met before that you don't know, right? And then whatever else going on in this dream, right? And though you dreaming, right? In the dream, it's not real, right? But yet it is real. And here's the reason why it's both worlds intertwining again, right? Because from a mental aspect, right? And a psychological aspect, it is real. It's always real, right? It's just, it's not real in a physical aspect because you can't touch it, but in a mental aspect, it's real. You just can't grasp it and you can't feel it, right? So it's real in both worlds, but the problem is this. This would I always ask myself, right? Does it exist in real life? Does this places actually exist? Do we exist in the other places? You know, right? Even though the self-conscious mind don't recall, right? Or probably don't know and don't remember. But if what they saying is accurate, right? If the mind can only recreate or create off what is experienced or what's already exists, it's still saying that in order for the mind to create whatever it's creating, right? From a mental aspect and from a physical aspect, it's still going to only create what it's saying, it experienced, and what already exists. Just hypothetically, what if these places and these peoples do exist in different dimensions, right? And we just don't have no recollection of it, right? Because we wasn't in this body, right? In that dimension at that time and period. But even though we probably still exist in these dimensions, you know, in different times and periods, but not in this form of energy, right? In this body. But that thought is so deep. And these are the kind of questions that I be asking myself that I be wanting to know. But I hope I'm making sense to y'all. You know, like I always say, you know, this is my second video. In the first video, I said, like, when I be talking to my friends, these are everyday conversations that I have with them. It's just hard to have a understanding, right? Because it's half of the time they have no idea what I'm talking about. And they be looking at me like I'm crazy or I'm losing my mind, right? And you know what I mean? So I'm just, you know, trying to share my thoughts with you. So if it's anybody that, you know, want to speak to me or leave a comment or on what I'm talking about or share they idea or they mind on this subject matter, right? Feel free to leave me a comment, share this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will respond to every comment, right? But at the same time, like I said, this is my second video, and I hope I'm doing it right. The last video I done, it took me like 30 minutes to figure out how to end it, and I think, and I hope it don't take me that long to end this one. But at the same time, tell me, what do you think? Do you think I'm losing my mind? Do you think what psychologists and scientists is saying about the mind, do you think it's true? Do you believe it makes sense to you? Because it makes a lot of sense to me. And I can give you another example, as to why it make a lot of sense to me, right? And I'm going to give you an example about, like, you know how when a person, they say, pass away, right? And whatever the case is, right? When you at the burial ground, right? And then you have the pastor, right? When he reading the scriptures, you know, he or she always quote, they always say, he or she came as far as he can go, right? Then they'll say, ashes are ashes and dust is dust. So as they came, so should it go, right? Also, right? To me, it's starting to make sense. Like I said, one question always leads to more questions, right? Because what they really saying is the body goes back to the universe, right? You know, to the ground, to the dust, to the dirt, right? But this consciousness, this soul, this mind, this spirit, it also goes back from when this came, right? But we know that's not the universe. We know that's not the earth. We know that's not the dirt. But where it does goes, no one knows, right? So I will agree that what they call God, that's where this soul goes, or this consciousness, or this mind, for that's where this came, right? That's how deep this is, you know, to me. It make all the sense in the world to me. And therefore, that will always remain, right? So with that said, so other words, what it's really saying is you always live in two words and live in two lives, right? That's always intertwined at the same time. So that's a good thing, because what they actually really saying in real life, you know, even though you living in two different worlds and though these words intertwine, right, they still separate, right? You can't put both of them in the same category, right? For one is made of spirit, right? One you can't grab, you can't touch, you can't see, but the other one you can touch, you can feel, right? So it's like saying, so you live two life in two different worlds, but you have two like events that happen to you or goes on the same time in two different time dimensions, right? In other words, what I'm saying is, like, everything happened twice in life, right? Everything happened in a invisible aspect, right? Before the physical aspect, right? So other words, it's like everything that physical was invisible first, right? So it's like it plays itself out. It's like it's repeat, right? It's already exists in one aspect in one world, while, you know what I mean, it's doing whatever it's designed to do or whatever it was made to do, right? And then in the other world that it was manifested in the physical world, it replay itself out all over again, right? I hope I'm not losing y'all. It's so deep. But like I said, one question leads to another question. But these are type of thoughts. These are the type of questions I be having in my mind. And most times I'm talking to my friend, you know, they don't know how to relate to me where they can give me feedback, right? So they just give me a certain look like, you know, he really losing it. See, the only thing that I have good in my when it comes to that aspect of life, because I don't smoke and I don't drink, so they know I'm not tweaking. So they know I got to have something there, you know what I mean? So what do you guys think? Do y'all think that the power of the mind is as interesting as I find it? Do y'all think, is that something that turn on the light bulb in y'all head like it does mine, and actually make you think and actually bring up other questions and more questions? You know what I mean? Because, see, the secret is this, right? I'm very shy, but I'm very outspoken. I always been brilliant in my own way, right? So even when I was in school, you know, it don't matter, you know, what the teaching or what it was in, right? It was math or science or whatever. Even